It's a big recruiting weekend for Ohio State. Quality players are in Columbus on their official visits. Welcome into Buckeye Cadence. My name is Blake Biscardi. I'm your host. That is Grant Kincaid. And then TJ Warner joining us today, the recruiting expert here at the Silver Bulletin. Grant, TJ, how are we doing? Big things happening around Ohio State football. I know we've talked about jerseys. We've talked about the stadium enhancements, all these things. But this is going to be June now. So that means recruiting season is in full fledged here.
Yeah, man, recruiting season's going good. It's a big one here. Grant, what do you think about it?
It is. I mean, obviously we have DGG, with the S on the end, which you do pronounce. We did find out, actually how to pronounce his name. But a generational recruit, a Jeremiah Smith type recruit. A lot of people have been saying, to have a guy like that on the doorstep, possibly playing for Ohio State, it's always big news. And obviously we have a slew of a bunch of other guys that TJ is going to elaborate on here soon.
Yeah, TJ, just talk about who's here this weekend, the importance of those guys. Because you said Ohio State is rolling out the red carpet here. This is a monumental weekend for the Buckeyes. And this is happening right here at the edge of May and June. So, yes, I know June is that traditional big recruiting month, but it's starting right now this weekend for Ohio State having these guys on campus.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to really note right now is, Ohio State, since I've been really covering recruiting, they've never had this small of a OV visit list at one time. 4 guys, that's where 2 on offense, 2 on defense. Every coach is locked into their guy. They're rolling out the red carpet for each one of those guys. That makes everyone know it. Every 4 that are here right now is a very high priority for the guys. So first up, we got David Gabriel Georges, the guy out of Chattanooga, out of Baylor School. It's just a dynamic running back. I mean, just like Grant said, like this is a guy that everyone really wants, and Coach Locke has been doing a great job keeping that relationship up with them. Him and his uncle is his two main people to talk to there. And DG's told me a bunch of stuff about the recruitment. It's obviously down to Ohio State, Tennessee. Everyone knows that, and he's got a top 4 out with Ole Miss and Georgia, but he reiterated to me just a couple weeks ago. He's like, yeah, it's Ohio State, Tennessee. We'll go on the OVs. He has a decision in late July. Look for him to make that decision, and it's going to stick with him. Wherever he goes, it's going to stick. I'd be very shocked if it flipped. But that's one to keep an eye out for Ohio State, because if Ohio State misses on that, they have a couple extra running backs coming up in the next couple OV weekends. Jaden Miles is a big one here too. Look to see if Coach Locke keeps those running backs on the OV list. If they start to trickle away from the OV list and they don't actually make it up to Columbus, look to see for that DGG commitment in late July. That would be a really, really, really big get. It would be an instant impact guy for Ohio State. The next one up is Benny Easter on the wide receiver list. That's a Texas Tech commit right now. Coach Hankton loves him. I mean, that's one that I've heard too. The NIL is surprisingly not too high with him at Texas Tech too. So look for him to be one on Flip Watch, depending on how this OV visit weekend went, and then look to see him added to that premier class with Jameer Brown right now too. The next guy up, Prince Goldsby, linebacker. He's obviously a commit now, but this is a one of a big OVs that really locks him in for the future too. It's a guy that's got a lot of traction from a lot of different programs, and this OV weekend pretty much just solidifies him and James Laurinaitis' relationship. And James Laurinaitis, he's turning into the new Brian Hartline for this staff with how he's just handpicking these linebackers wherever he wants. He's getting a 6'4", 220 guy anytime he wants it right now. And this is another dynamic guy that kind of resembles Riley Pettijohn's recruitment back in the day. And a huge get for James Laurinaitis there. And then the big one, the 5-star defensive lineman, Marcus Fakatou out of Sierra Canyon. I actually just learned how to pronounce his name a couple days ago when I reached out to him for the pronunciation. That's one that's a huge one. Him, Ohio State and Notre Dame are the 2 big ones. And you can see Matt Patricia and Larry Johnson are making him a very, very big priority. Getting him on campus in this weekend, making sure that he's got all eyes and attention on him. He's got a teammate actually coming for a official visit here in a couple weekends as well. And if they get Marcus to commit here, I think his commitment date's also in late July. If they get him to commit as well, man, this class will be going from a top 10 class to a top 3 class really quickly if they can land all these official visitors this weekend.
TJ, you're talking about David Gabriel, Georges, and we'll go in order here just one by one on these recruits. And you're talking about looking down the list at some of these other running backs that are going to be visiting in Columbus, and how if you see them sticking, okay, that could be an indicator. But if you see them start to fall away, it's kind of like that there will be signs type of situation there with Georges as his commitment. What is he looking for in the school that he's going to choose? Because we know Coach Laurinaitis loves him. Ohio State's been locked in on him. It's between the Buckeyes and the Volunteers of Tennessee. Like, this has been very public. You said it. What's helping him make his decision? What does he value the most in the program that he's going to go play for?
He values a lot of early playing time, but also his relationship. Like, he wants a spot where he thinks he's going to go get developed and go to the next level. And for Ohio State, that's a big selling point. Coach Locke and his relationship. If Coach Locke had a chance to go to Tennessee with Josh Heupel, I think David Gabriel Georges would already be committed to Tennessee. I think Coach Locke is the only reason Ohio State's still in the game right now. And that's a big one for him. He loves Coach Locke, and his uncle loves Coach Locke as well. And that's the huge thing that's keeping Ohio State in it. I mean, one thing to point out too is he goes to Tennessee quite often for visits because he's not that far away. I mean, that's an hour and a half away from his school. A lot of his former teammates were committed there, and he would just go right up there for unofficial visits all the time at Tennessee. So Tennessee's got him on campus a lot more than Ohio State has. But Ohio State is a lot closer to home for him. And he's from Canada originally, not originally from Chattanooga, Tennessee. So that's another big playing field for him is, hey, I'm going closer to home, going back up to Columbus. And Coach Locke in that relationship is really helping out as well.
That was one of the things I wanted to ask you, because you're talking about this kid being a Chattanooga kid, but you got to clear that up, because you think, okay, Tennessee's right in his backyard. Like, yes, it's his backyard, but it's not his home backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And now Ohio State is closer. But what makes Coach Laurinaitis? I mean, think about that. What you're saying here is that he's the only reason that, Ohio State's still in the mix, because of how close he is to Tennessee. And if Laurinaitis was at Tennessee, he'd already be there. That speaks to the volume of coach that Laurinaitis is, the development that happens at Ohio State. And that's something that Ryan Day talked a lot about in the spring when we were asking him, it's NFL draft time, you're looking at pro day, and then you see 51 new players that are coming in. Like, there's a lot moving around in this Ohio State program, but what's consistent is, regardless of what players are there, we know the talent evaluation staff at Ohio State is world-class. That personnel department, Mark Pantoni and company, they do the best work in the country. But then you see these guys that go play for Ohio State, maybe they take less NIL money, they go get developed, and then they make that money in the NFL because they get developed and they become high draft picks. And the things that I've heard about David Gabriel Georges and the excitement that you see in the coaching staff's eyes, or people around the program, and we're in the facility, we're talking with these guys. I mean, they want him, and they see, okay, this kid is legit. Like, he could push for playing time. And if these running backs in Ohio State's room, yes, it's talented, yes, it has depth, but if they don't have their stuff together, watch out, because if he steps on campus, he's a guy that can push for playing time. And Grant, when you evaluate this current running back room at Ohio State, how would he fit into this room, and when would you expect to see him getting on the field?
Well, like you said, he could be on the field day one. He is, I don't think people are exaggerating with the Jeremiah Smith level comparisons. I mean, he has sub 4.3 speed in high school, already, along with the size, and I assume he's got the vision to boot. So all that, considering it's the running back position, which is a position where you can be plugged in pretty early. You don't have to learn that much, before you're able to make an impact on offense. All it takes is, one of these guys to not come to fruition. Talking about, Isaiah West and obviously Bo Jackson and whoever else this year plays that role. But running back room has to be deep, especially at Ohio State, especially in an offense where Arthur Smith is going to be at the helm. The running game is going to be enormous. So if you have a guy that can attract that kind of attention from defenses just from him stepping on the field, that's exactly what Arthur Smith wants. He wants a guy who's going to take eyes off of the receivers and off of the quarterback. So I think there's a chance he plays very early.
TJ, when you look at Gabriel Georges and how he's valuing the offenses and the relationships and the two schools, you do have a guy, Arthur Smith, who's a former NFL head coach and offensive coordinator, who is the offensive coordinator for Ohio State now. Pair that with Coach Laughlin. How big of a factor is Arthur Smith in this recruitment for Gabriel Georges? I know he's newer to the program, but in his eyes, does that add a level to him coming to Ohio State? Because he's like, okay, now I see the development that happens at Ohio State. I have a great relationship with Coach Laughlin, and now I have a former NFL head coach and coordinator who is going to be operating the offense that I'm going to play under for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think it definitely adds a level. The thing about this, though, they haven't really had the time to build the relationship that Coach Locke has in the past 2 years when he's been a priority guy for Ohio State for the past 2 years. I think this OV weekend is huge for Arthur Smith, though, to kind of sit down and explain, all right, this is the offense we're going to run. This is how we think we're going to fit you in the offense. It's more so of, all right, he understood the relationship that Coach Locke had. He understood the brand of Ohio State. Now he gets to understand, all right, this is how I'm going to be used at Ohio State under Arthur Smith's offense. This is the scheme that he has. This is the knowledge that he has and what he thinks I can do to be better, what he thinks I can do to get to the next level quicker, stuff of that nature. I think this OV weekend is huge for Arthur Smith and Gabriel Georges' relationship to mend even more. And like I said, dude, he's been a priority guy. That's how good he is. That's how generational of a talent he is. He's been a priority guy for Ohio State since he was a freshman in high school. I mean, that's just he's going into his senior year, and everyone knew about him 3 years ago. That's how big of a name he was. He had a 4-star running back that went to Ole Miss ahead of him on his high school team that he outshined from day one. I mean, that's just how big of a guy this dude is. I've seen him live 3 times. The last time I saw him live, he scored 7 touchdowns against McCallie. I mean, like, this dude is legit. And in Ohio State, if we land him here, Coach Locke deserves all praise there. And Arthur Smith really came in and sold the deal here on this OV weekend too.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And the last thing I'll ask you about him is freshman running backs don't always step onto the field immediately at Ohio State. But if you look back in recent history, you see J.K. Dobbins and Travion Henderson. Then if you turn back the clock about 2 decades, you're going to see Maurice Clarett. Is there a comparison of a previous Ohio State running back that you can compare David Gabriel Georges to?
I mean, I would say J.K. Dobbins with elite home run speed. If that's the way to. He's just an absolute bowling ball that will find every crease, and when you're supposed to get 2, he's going to get 5. But he's also going to have that Travion Henderson elite home run speed too. So if you could combine those two, that's what you would do. But he's an all around back though. He's going to be 3 downs. It's going to be hard to take him off the field. I mean, think about the season that Bo Jackson just had as a freshman. And we think DGG could be 10 times better than that. That's the expectation he's already getting as a senior in high school, or going into a senior year in high school, and that's just a testament to how good of a player he really is.
Let's switch gears to a monster defensive target for Ohio State on the other side of the ball. So DGG seems to be offensive target number 1. Marcus Fakatou seems to be defensive target number 1. We've not seen a red carpet get rolled out like this since probably JT Tuimoloau. I mean, you're looking at the reception that he has gotten, what Larry Johnson is doing to try to land this kid. TJ, when you look at his profile, what would he bring to the Ohio State defense? How would that impact it, especially with how James Laurinaitis has the linebackers playing, and then Larry Johnson, obviously his prowess on the defensive line. And then what is he valuing in his recruitment when he's looking at, okay, what schools is he looking to go to? Who's he considering? What should the fan know about this recruitment?
Yeah, I mean, this recruitment, it seems like it's a 2-headed race with Ohio State Notre Dame. That's not for sure though. I mean, he's got visits lined up elsewhere, but those are the 2 main schools to keep an eye on. I mean, and what type of player Ohio State's getting though? I mean, this is a 6'7", 280-pound guy already. I mean, we think he's going to play. 3 tech could move him out to edge if he stays around that weight. It just depends on, I guess, how his body develops in the next year or 2. But as far as a player that Ohio State's seen in recent memory related to him, I don't think we have. I mean, having a 6'7" defensive tackle possibly, if he gets to 310, I think he could play like a Mike Hall 3-tech position. But I mean, this dude's just massive. We haven't seen a massive human being like this on the defensive line. I mean, the guy that I would compare him to of like just a physical presence is DeJuan Jones. I mean, you just look out and it's just a massive human being that will just push people around. And that's exactly what Marcus does. And he just gets after it, man. I mean, this is a guy that that will just push the offensive line around and wreak havoc in the backfield all the time, just because of how physically gifted he is. I mean, there's not just many humans that are physically gifted the way he is. So, and this dude is just, he's driven. He's very driven. He's very smart for a young man that he is, and he has his priorities pretty straight. So he's looking for a culture, and that's why you see the two schools really jump out of Ohio State and Notre Dame. And I think this is really a OV weekend where you can kind of sell them on the culture and sell them on the future as well.
Grant, when you see a player like this, and he's considering Ohio State, Notre Dame, there's not much geographical difference between these two schools either, so that's not really a big deal. But then when you look at the culture that both teams can go ahead and sell him on this weekend, then you look at also the development. And TJ, you're talking about his body of, okay, can he get to 310? Is he going to stay at 260, 270, 280? What's it going to look like? We've seen guys like Sonny Styles come into this program and thinking they're going to play safe, and all of a sudden Coach Mick gets a hold of him, and his body completely transforms. Same thing with Harvell Reese, CJ Hicks, like these guys that can play multiple positions. Grant, when you evaluate him, what do you see from him as a player? And can he have one of those Sonny Styles type transformations where maybe he comes in thinking he's going to play on the line or at the 3 tech, and then maybe Coach Mick gets a hold of him and they're like, you know what, he can move out to a jack position or something like that?
I mean, it would be impressive considering he's already 6'7". I imagine he'll grow a little bit more, maybe not, maybe he's done. But man, at that height and weight, you'd love to keep him on the line just as a guy who can throw his hands up. Whenever he can't get into the backfield or can't get to the quarterback, having a guy like that just become a wall on the line on any given down would also be huge. So I think, in Ohio State's best interest, you want to have that guy moving inside and outside on the line, depending on, how the offense sets up or whatever their tendencies are. I would think he would stay in that role. But he's like an extended Kenyatta Jackson. Kenyatta's a big guy already, but this guy's clears him, in both height and weight probably immediately. So when you can have a guy with that size alongside the guys we already have, I think it's invaluable on the defensive line.
TJ, any more thoughts on what he would bring, what Larry Johnson's really emphasizing in his recruitment, what he's looking for in those two schools? Like you're mentioning the culture. Does playing for Larry Johnson give him weight? Does the possibility of Larry Johnson retiring? I know sometimes when you get into these close battles with Ohio State on the defensive line, we've seen in recent years, hey, other schools negative recruit by saying, how many years does LJ have left? Do you want to really go and play for him? You could have a different coach come play for us. Our guy's locked in. Is that a factor in this recruitment at all or no?
I really don't think so, because I think his main guy, honestly, is Matt Patricia right now. Matt Patricia's making him a focal point, and that's the big key here is we have a defensive coordinator that is actually going out on the road and making sure he's getting guys, or making sure, all right, he's telling his position coaches, this is the guy that we want, and we're going to do everything we can to get him. And that's why he's here on this OV weekend with just 4 guys. He's the number 1 defensive target right now that is not committed, and that is exactly why I think Marcus could end up in this class, because Matt Patricia's pushing for him just as hard as Larry Johnson is. And I think Larry Johnson possibly retiring in the next year or two doesn't really faze him, because he knows Matt Patricia's going to be there and he's going to find the next replacement just fine.
That's been so valuable for Ohio State to maintain that continuity on the defensive staff. I think it's huge, whether it's recruiting, development. I mean, what Ohio State's defense can be this year with the players that they've lost. I mean, Grant wrote about this earlier this week. This defense can still be really good because they believe that they have hit on those transfer portal targets. So seeing what Matt Patricia can do in year 2, yes, you're losing 4 first-round NFL draft, 4 high NFL draft picks, because we almost had one at the end of the first round. But you go now to Benny Easter at wide receiver. He's a Texas Tech commit. Why is he coming to visit Ohio State?
Yeah, I mean,
What is the reason that he wants to come out here? Cortez Hankton loves him, you were saying. No more Brian Hartline. Why come visit Ohio State?
It's still wide receiver you at the end of the day. I mean, that's how all these kids are thinking about it. Like, they're seeing Brian Hartline not be there, and that's okay. And they're still wanting to come out. I mean, we've got some other big 5-star names coming out here soon. Eric McFarland, Monsoon Sales is coming out as well. There's some big 5-star names that are still coming out. Jameer Brown's already committed. wide receiver U is still a thing at Ohio State even without Brian Hartline. It's Ryan Day and his scheme that kind of started that. Brian Hartline just kind of got the benefit of the doubt from it, being the position coach and then moving up to OC. So these kids are still realizing, hey, if I want to go somewhere, I want to be something, Ohio State's still the place to be at wide receiver at that position. And I mean, Texas Tech, they got him committed pretty early. I think committed back in November of last year. So he's been committed for 4 or 5 months now. And this is a guy that is going to be, could play X, could play slot. I mean, you can kind of move them all across the field. I want to label him as like a Brandon Ennis type, but he's going to be a reliable guy at the end of the day too, with a lot more speed and agility on the outside to play a lot bigger than he is too. So this is something to keep a watch out and see how this OV weekend went, because Coach Hankton loves him, and that's one thing we know. We have Jameer Brown at wide receiver, but we need at least 3 guys is what they've been voicing so far in this class. And who's going to be able to side with Jameer Brown, and how do we get that? If we get Benny Easter as one of them, which is Coach Hankton, what I've heard is it's Coach Hankton's number 1 guy outside of Jameer Brown. This would be a huge weekend for him, and that's why he was here on this weekend as well.
And what is it about Easter that Hankton loves so much? What is it about his game? Is it the versatility, his size, speed? If the fans looking at him and saying, okay, I really haven't paid too much attention to Benny Easter because he's committed to Texas Tech. Sure, he's coming in on a visit. Okay, that's cool. But this is a big deal. What is it about him that Coach Hankton loves so much?
It's definitely his versatility. That's the easy answer there. But to dive deeper, it's probably more of the person. Like if you're committed to Texas Tech, you probably already have all the NIL you probably want. To be honest, they're one of the highest payers in the game right now. But you're taking an official visit to Ohio State because you want to see the program, you want to see what wide receiver U is actually about, and you're really diving into what Coach Hankton's building in that wide receiver room. You want to dive into having his follow guy this weekend was Jeremiah Smith. He's walking around with Jeremiah Smith for 3 days. I think that's going to have a big factor in his recruitment. You know, that's the biggest name in football right now. So following around with Jeremiah Smith and watching what Coach Hankton is building in that wide receiver room right now is definitely something that's going to play a factor. And we'll see if the flip's possible. I'll reach out more, let this weekend die out, reach out and kind of see where his head's at. But I bet they at least put a nugget in his mind of like, all right, if Texas Tech's not it, this is a spot to look at.
Yeah, and this is another one of those theory versus testimony moments that Ryan Day talks about, where if you're looking to be developed, especially at the wide receiver position, you come to Ohio State. That is the place to do it. It happens every single year. It's not every couple of years. It's not once a cycle. It's every single year that there's testimony of Ohio State producing first-round NFL draft pick wide receivers that NFL organizations love. And on that note, Grant, I want to ask you this first, and then TJ just follow right behind Grant's answer here. You mentioned wide receiver U and Brian Hartline, obviously moving on to USF, but recruits and people around the sport still viewing Ohio State as wide receiver U. And so the question so many people are wondering is Brian Hartline bigger than wide receiver U, or is wide receiver U bigger than Brian Hartline? So Grant, if you're asked that question, which direction do you fall when you're asked that question? Is Brian Hartline bigger than wide receiver U, or is wide receiver U the place and Brian Hartline was just the coach operating that Ferrari? And that's not to take anything away from Hartline either.
Yeah, no, it isn't. But I think it's definitely the place. And like TJ said, it's a lot of it falls on Ryan Day and his scheme. Pretty much as soon as he came in, we had Dwayne Haskins set all kinds of records passing, and that guys like Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson just happened to be in that driver's seat when he came. Paris Campbell at the end of his career, caught Ryan Day just at the right time, and he probably got drafted higher than he would have because of Ryan Day. So I think it's just the way that that offense has changed since Day has taken over, and obviously airing the ball out more, but doing it in more intelligent ways and setting up receivers for success. And then obviously, once that started to happen, we started to get 5 stars every single year, and that helps your passing game a lot. So, guys like Jeremiah Smith and so on, just kind of reiterate and solidify wide receiver U year after year. So we're definitely have an embarrassment of riches, and hope it doesn't end anytime soon.
Yeah, and I think the big thing here is Brian Hartline said it himself. It's Ohio State at the end of the day. Not to take anything away from him, and he said it in a recent interview, talking about, yeah, if I was the wide receiver whisperer, they would all follow me to USF. But let's just be real, that's not going to happen. Ohio State's the place here, and it's bigger than Brian Hartline, unfortunately. But I don't think that's to take anything away from him. He's the best wide receiver coach in the country still, even as a head coach. I'll still give him that label, but it's still bigger than the place. And Ohio State U, or wide receiver U, is at Ohio State, and it's going to be that way for years to come, with Jeremiah Smith, with Chris Henry Jr., with Jameer Brown coming up as well.
Don't forget Brock Boyd turning a lot of heads this spring as well. Ohio State's deep at wide receiver, and it's going to be very, very fun to watch this room with year 2 Julian Sayin. But then, TJ, let's wrap up this weekend's talk with Prince Goldsby. He is a linebacker commit, just recently committed to Ohio State. So he's walking on campus as an Ohio State commit now instead of just a target. James Laurinaitis has done an outstanding job as the linebackers coach, and his role when he was hired was to make the linebacker room better, and he has done that tenfold. You see Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles being high draft picks this year, the development, how these players are coming along. What made Goldsby commit to James Laurinaitis and Ohio State? And then what's the vision for him now being a Buckeye?
Yeah, well, Goldsby is going to be more the outside linebacker role. He'll be in the Arvell Reese type style, but I don't know if he'll be used like Arvell was. I don't know. He could develop into more of a pass rusher, possibly, into a jack role later on in his career. But right now, he's going to play more of like the outside linebacker, like Arvell did this year, kind of spy sometimes. But Goldsby, man, he's the kid out of Kansas City. He's 6'4", 200. And that's the one thing that James Laurinaitis, when he took over the room, that he realized, hey, like, what do we have to do? We have to get guys that can run sideline to sideline and actually make plays. And that's what we've done in the past couple of years. Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles can fly across the field. The guys that we have on this year's team is going to fly across the field. And the recruits that we've been bringing in can fly across the field. So that's the big thing. We're getting long, athletic guys that can kind of be really versatile in coverage and come down and lay the thump on some of these running backs too and fill the gaps. And this is nothing away from past guys, but Prince Goldsby is going to fill that role pretty quickly, I think, in this Ohio State scheme too.
And if you're Matt Patricia sitting back and you're looking at all these chess pieces you have on the board, yes, was it fun to use Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese and Caden McDonald, whose name escaped me a few minutes ago? If you're looking at those pieces now, you're saying, okay, they go to the NFL, but okay, these are the guys that we're bringing in as recruits. This is who we have on the field. This is what we've added in the transfer portal. TJ, how is this defense coming together in your eyes for this current season and then projecting into that following season once Goldsby would arrive on campus? And then Grant, go ahead and follow after TJ here, touching on your article.
Yeah, it's coming together quite nicely. I mean, the fact that you can think about there's 4 high draft picks and 3 of those are first rounders leave your team, and you think your defense can compete at a top 5 level in the nation again is just outrageous to say. It's officially Ohio State reloads, and it's not the defense of the past that we had in CJ Stroud defenses. It's the defense of the now with Ohio State and Matt Patricia. We started at the last year under Jim Knowles. Matt Patricia took it to another level. I expect it to stay at a top 5 level this year with Kenyatta Jackson on the edge, with Peyton Pierce up the middle, and then all these guys on the outside in the secondary: Devin Sanchez, Terry Moore, Earl Little Jr., Jermaine Matthews. We're going to have absolute weapons across the field, and that Matt Patricia will be able to use like Swiss Army knives. They're going to be able to be all across the field. They're all really versatile as well. I don't know if you've noticed that, but we're getting super long and athletic guys that we can play at multiple positions, so we can move them across the field depending on injuries and such of that it's going to be really good. And then projecting for the future, I mean, they're just adding more and more pieces that are just big athletic humans that are something that Ohio State hasn't had in recent years, and it's getting even better. We're going to have an embarrassment of riches of freshmen in the next 2 years that is just going to be wow, like jaw-dropping wow. Like we're actually back to having the elite defenses back to back years, even after losing first-round draft picks.
And then, Grant, you see what Ohio State's added through the transfer portal. Talk about the defense, how it's shaping up this season.
It's shaping up well. It's especially at the I think linebacker position is going to be very interesting because obviously Styles and Reese, were on the field constantly, and you didn't really have to worry about anybody else because those guys filled those roles to a tune of top 7 in the draft. Both getting picked in that range. So you listen to the way that Laurinaitis has talked about a lot of his guys. It sounds like, Allegro, the transfer from Wisconsin, is going to be kind of that that alpha signal caller, get guys in the right position, and then Peyton Pierce, probably that 1A right now, probably a guy who's going to be on the field a lot because just because of his experience and his ability to stop the run. But guys like Riley Pettijohn or, even TJ Alford, there's going to be a lot of depth at that position and there's going to be rotation at that position. And that speaks to a lot of what, TJ has been talking about. Those guys can cover a lot of ground. Riley Pettijohn, is a lot like Goldsby. It's this guy who is long, is very athletic, but then with his size can come in and he can fill gaps, and he's gonna lay the lumber. He's gonna strike guys. Alford turned a lot of heads. He's catching eyes right now for a lot of the same reasons. He's just freak athletes that can take a load off of guys like Allegro and Pierce at any given time and cover a lot of ground. So that unit's going to be interesting to see, what Laurinaitis and Patricia decide to do rotation wise and scheme wise, game to game. And then obviously, Earl Jr. has, a guy that everyone has been raving about in the spring, and a guy that is probably going to move, from safety position to nickel back, wherever they're going to need him in the secondary, which is huge, especially because we're replacing guys like Caleb Downs. Obviously Igbenogson was an outside guy, but it might change roles for guys like Jermaine Matthews, to where you need Orlando Jr. and Terry Moore to play some different roles this season. So I think we're going to see all of these transfer guys play really big roles, and it may not be the normal 11 or 12 guys like last year playing every single snap, but you're going to see a lot of athletes that Patricia handpicked for a reason, and it's going to be an interesting team to watch, and it's going to be a fun defense to watch against Texas.
TJ, when you see the expectations at Ohio State, and you were touching on this in one of your previous points, Ohio State loses what they lose in the last two NFL drafts. That's 25 draft picks. They win a national championship 2 years ago. And the expectations are still the exact same to go win every single game. Now, the reason you have those is because you can recruit at a level like this. And when you're seeing a guy like James Laurinaitis stepping up, yes, as a coach, as a developer, but now as a recruiter as well, is he following in that same track as Brian Hartline, where, okay, he should be now nationally recognized as a recruiter and a position coach? And where do you see like his career trajectory going? Because he's got to be one of the most valuable coaches on Ohio State staff. Now, obviously, Matt Patricia and Arthur Smith notwithstanding, but if you're looking at just position coaches, the value that he's adding to Ohio State and how he has elevated his room, the entire defense, and also the culture, being a Buckeye himself too, his NFL career, there's so much that goes into the package of who James Laurinaitis is, on top of being a great person, a great relationship builder. So when you look at James Laurinaitis, how does he stack up against Brian Hartline in terms of career trajectory and around the country?
Yeah, well, I just first want to say, I think Ryan Day's put together his best staff he's ever had.
Yes.
As a head coach at Ohio State. I mean, from the coordinator level down to position level coaches, this is the best staff Ryan Day has had ever at Ohio State as the head coach. But James Laurinaitis, man, I mean, this is a place that he really wants to be at. I mean, he came here as a GA at first, just to make sure that he was at Ohio State. This is a spot that I think he wants to move up in the ranks, but this is a spot where he wants to stay at. I don't think he's going to be like a Brian Hartline and leave to go be a head coach and then try to come back to be a head coach here later. I think this is a spot that he's going to be a nationally ranked linebacker coach like Hartline was at wide receiver in the next 2 or 3 years and get the respect that he has, and all the top linebackers are going to be looking at Ohio State because of him and because of his pedigree and because of his style of play and all the players that he's putting into the league right now. And then it's going to turn around, and he might move up to a defensive coordinator role if Matt Patricia leaves in the future. But James Laurinaitis is here to stay, and I'd be very shocked if he doesn't turn into what Brian Hartline was at turning in a wide receiver U into Ohio State. I think we could very well turn into a linebacker U in Ohio State in the next 3 to 4 years.
Especially in Matt Patricia's system too. I mean, linebacker U coming back, the Silver Bullets being back, as those former defenses were back in the day. I mean, this Ohio State defense the last 2 seasons has been elite, and James Laurinaitis is a big part to play in that with the way his linebackers now are viewed by opposing offenses and how you have to account for those guys in the scheme and the versatility and the athleticism and the size and the speed. So much that goes into it, but also the IQ. Because James Laurinaitis is a high IQ player himself. Now you're finding players who share that. He's a great teacher of the game in addition to developing, and that's the perfect combination that you want to see, especially in a position coach. But TJ, let's wrap up the show with this. So this is a really big weekend for Ohio State, all those guys being on campus, and you might think, well, it's not a ton of names. Well, the quality and the depth is absolutely there. They are high priority targets, and then one commit there. But this coming weekend for Ohio State, this first official June weekend, who can Ohio State fans expect to see on campus? Who's visiting? And then what are the big storylines to watch this coming weekend?
Yeah, well, June 5th, the visitors that I've collected so far, we got Eric McFarland, wide receiver, Wyatt Smith, the commit, edge rusher commit, Eli Johnson, the safety commit, and then we have Monsanto Tolbert, Justin Week, Jaden Miles, Jaden Carey, Taron Rollins, and Kalon Bailey. So look out for some of those names to come to Ohio State this upcoming weekend. Post their official visit pictures. All the fans, make sure, I guess, go show some love on their IG or Twitter posts. But those are some of the names that you can look for Ohio State to be really targeting here soon. Some of those commits, Eli Johnson and Wyatt Smith, will be recruiting for us that week. So we have a couple defensive line guys I'm sure Wyatt Smith will be walking around with and trying to talk their ear off. And then Eli Johnson, we got a bunch of secondary guys there. So I'm sure they'll be wearing their recruiting hats as well and showing their family around campus. But those are names to keep an eye on. Eric McFarland, like I said earlier, that's one to keep a real big eye on. That's a high ranked wide receiver that we could see joining Jameer Brown in that group. And I know Coach Hankton loves him, and we'll see how that goes. And then another one, James Laurinaitis, throwing his name back out there, Kalon Bailey. He's listed as an edge rusher, but he's going to be a linebacker, kind of an Arvell Reese type linebacker for our system. And I think you could see him possibly lay the commitment down, but we'll see how that one goes and how that shakes out. There's a bunch of other schools talking to him and coming on late, but we'll see if the Glenville product hopefully stays home. And it should be a slam dunk recruitment, but with NIL nowadays, you never know.
Yeah, he was one of the guys I was going to mention there, TJ. I know we talked off air about him and what we've heard about him and the player that he is, but following that Glenville pipeline, it's long standing between Ted Ginn Sr. and Glenville High School coming to Columbus. Arvell Reese, the most recent guy. You see Sincere Johnson. I mean, these guys are very talented linebackers. And then if Kalon Bailey is able to follow in those footsteps, I think there's some confidence there. But again, like you say, in this NIL era, nothing is sure until you see the ball go through the net. That is one of those things in this recruitment that, yes, this should be a slam dunk for Ohio State. Just see it go through the net. That's going to be one of the main things here. But TJ, any closing thoughts on recruiting? Some notes any of the fans should need to know before we close the show officially today?
Yeah, just make sure you're looking at those official visit lists right there, because that's really going to give you a tell of what Ohio State and that staff thinks of those kids. If they're not coming on OV, they're more than likely not going to be on Ohio State's radar right now. So if they're bringing them on the OV, look out for those lists, and then look for commits a lot in the next couple months, especially late July. A lot of these kids want to be committed before their senior season starts. So you'll see a lot of the class kind of starting to take shape by end of July, early August, and then before season starts for Ohio State, they'll bring some more guys on for game day visits and try to round it up by November. So keep a lookout for the official visit list, and then you'll see some commits here soon.
Grant and TJ. Grant, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you on social media. And then TJ, our recruiting expert here, go ahead and share your social media handles to make sure that everyone is staying up to date with the recruiting coverage that you guys are both providing. Grant, go ahead.
At Kincaid 8 on Twitter. That's where we get most of our information. And then Kincaid 8 everywhere else.
Yeah, mine's at TJ Warner _ everywhere on social media, especially on Twitter. So,
guys, we appreciate you listening to the show. If you'd like to follow me, my handle is at Blake Biscardi. But make sure you're subscribing to the Silver Bulletin on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribing to the podcast Buckeye Candidates wherever you get your podcasts. Visit our website, tsilverbulletin.com. We appreciate you guys listening to the show, and we will see you next time. God bless.